Hello and welcome. So today I'm gonna do a video on looks theory and why I think looks theory is wrong and why it's not connected to man's rights and why it's actually opposed to man's rights, right? So it's very simple, right? So looks theory is bad because it promotes male-on-male hostility, or it is a product actually of male-on-male hostility, right? So it's like these people, these men who obsess about looks, right? And they say like, oh, only tall men are exempt from being the victims of misandry or something, and only short men are the victims of misandry, right? All this nonsense, right? It's basically like these short men, they get resentful towards tall men, right? And it creates this unnecessary male on male hostility, right? And it's again centered around getting the girl, right? So these short men say, "Oh, these tall chads, they get all, they steal our women," and all this nonsense, right? This is basically what they're trying to say with that, right? And again, it's easy to see that this is not connected to man's rights. This is against man's rights, right? So this is why I'm only making like one video about this and never touch the subject again. Okay, I'm just saying that I'm against looks theory, and I don't just mean because it sort of creates schisms between men, right, unnecessarily, but also because I think it is wrong. I don't think it actually is supported by evidence, right? Because we have a lot of men who are high status and who get a lot of women and access to women and are married that are not very attractive and that are very short, actually, right? And this shows us that status matters more to women than looks, right? Status and money. So here's a list of like short actors, short male actors, and you can clearly see like Danny DeVito, Robin Williams, Michael J. Fox, Peter Dinklage, right? Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, right? Daniel Radcliffe, Joe Pesci, all kinds of high status men who get women, right? Who usually are married, and yet they're short. They're very short, right? And this is something that looks theory cannot explain, really, right? This shouldn't be possible according to looks theory. They shouldn't be high status, right? Their shortness and their shortness and unattractiveness should have been something that prevented them from getting status. Yet they have status and they get these women, right? And also, like for example, we see the average height of U.S. presidents, right? So, for example, let's see, right? So the presidential average is a little bit higher than the U.S. male height, right? But it's not that much actually. It's just 5 centimeter higher, right? And the presidential average height is just 180 centimeters, right? So this is actually quite short. This is not very high, right? And we see a lot of like today's head of states and politicians, male politicians. Do they really look like models to you, like male models? I don't think so, actually, right? And many of them are actually quite short. I mean, some of them are tall, but many of them are actually short. So that already shows us that this looks theory thing is absolute nonsense, because these high status males, they get women, they get, power and all of that, even though they are short and sometimes not very attractive in many other ways, right? So this already tells us that looks theory has some serious flaws, right? Then also this claim that only like low status and sort of ugly men, they're the only ones who sort of suffer from misandry, right? This was also claimed by some looks theorists under my video in the comment section, right? But this is also nonsense. We see high status and good looking men getting Me Too'd, right? This happens. So, for example, James Franco, right? But also Bryan Singer. So obviously, attractive men who get Me Too'd, right? Where the feminists go after them, right? And also Henry Cavill, another one, cancelled by feminists. So they are victims of misandry. Okay, I have not looked into every like Me Too case of every man, but yeah, it is very clear that a lot of attractive and high status men also suffer from misandry, and they also can suffer in divorce courts, right? That high status doesn't mean that you have as a man some kind of protection against misandry and feminism, right? Feminism has taken down many high status men, and yeah, I mean, so we shouldn't be resentful towards these men, right? Just because they're high status or because they're like attractive or whatever, right? Here's another example, like Rupert Murdoch. He's very rich. He's probably one of the richest men in America, and he was sort of forced in divorce to give his ex-wife like huge amounts of money, right? So like 100 million, 110 million. Yeah, I mean this is just crazy, right? So this is something that mostly men have to suffer regardless of whether or not they are high status or not, right? Regardless of whether or not you think these high status men deserve all that money or whatever, right? But just assuming that they do, in the case of uh, divorce, they are suffering just as much as the average man, in relative terms at least, right? So yeah, I mean this is just clear that being high status, it does mean that you're somewhat living a better life, right? I wouldn't say that like someone like Jeff Bezos has it as hard as someone like some low status male from the street, right? But they both face misandry because they're men, right? And a high status man can also become a low status man very quickly in today's society, right? Because of things like Me Too accusations and things like that, right? So yeah, this idea that high status men are or attractive men are protected from feminism is just nonsense. Okay, and last but not least, let me get back to looks theory real quick. So here's a study that actually sort of debunks looks theory. It's titled "The Necessities and Luxuries of Mate Preferences," and it sort of tests like what kind of priorities that do men and women have when it comes to choosing a mate, like under budget constraints, like if these characteristics that they seek in a mate were something like a physical good that they could buy, so to speak, right? And this study basically tests that what they would do under budget constraints, right? Which characteristics would they choose in the opposite sex, right? And women spend the highest proportion of their low budget on intelligence and yearly income. Now, intelligence can lead to high status, so it's kind of a proxy measure for status. And yearly income, again, no explanation needed for that, right? Exactly what we have been saying. And here is also a table that shows us like the priorities, like what do they choose first among many characteristics such as physical attractiveness, social level, creativity, kindness, and liveliness, right? And you can see, like among men, for example, they first choose physical attractiveness among women, right? But when it comes to women, what do they first choose in potential mates, right? In the opposite sex? Physical attractiveness is nowhere near their first priority, which is social level, aka social status. Okay? Which means that status is more important and is a higher priority for women uh, than physical attractiveness. Physical attractiveness doesn't even come close to being the highest priority. Social level, on the other hand, is. Okay? So, yeah, this is just very clear. This table alone debunks looks theory. Plain and simple. Looks is a luxury. Okay, a luxury. It's not something that women are choosing as a priority. Okay, it is at best a luxury. I mean, of course, when you have like two high status men, right, and they're sort of similar in status and similar in wealth, but they're like different uh, types of physical attractiveness, or the first has higher physical attractiveness than the other, then this might become relevant, right? But before that, it isn't really all that relevant, okay? So yeah, looks theory is nonsense. It divides men. Okay, it makes men resentful towards uh, other men. Okay, and it's a distraction from men's rights. Okay, we shouldn't really be focusing on dating. Okay, we should be fighting for our rights as human beings, first and foremost. Okay, and yeah, and again, this nonsense that high status men don't suffer misandry is absolute nonsense, and it's also nonsense that that looks is super important for women, or like the most important thing, or whatever. It's nonsense. Okay, it's absolute nonsense. Looks theory is debunked as far as I can tell. Peace out.